I love these books so much. These are my entire personality now. Like, these are my life. Hey guys, it's Story. Welcome back. Sorry if you can hear my washer or dryer in the background. I'm doing laundry right now. We don't have a door to the laundry room, so sorry about that. But today is an exciting video to go along with the worst books that I read this year. I'll be going over the best books I read this year in 2022 in this video. So a much more positive video. I did actually have a really good reading year this year, so it was really hard choosing my list, but I have a couple honorable mentions and then I have my top 5, so let's go ahead and get into it. If you aren't already following on my social medias, please do. I'm much more active over there nowadays and I would love to have more friends. Anyways, let's just go ahead and get into the books. So a few honorable mentions before I get into the official list. I have to shout out Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, I think it is. I would probably rate this more like a 4.5, but if you are in your 20s and you are a female, please read this book. It's just the best time to read this book. I know it went kind of viral there for a while, so you probably already have. It basically goes over everything she's learned about love, obviously. It talks a lot about, you know, partying, finding yourself, your career, love with, you know, a significant other, your friends, your family, just like everything you kind of go over and come to realization with in your 20s. And it was just the perfect time to read this for me personally. So if you are around my age, if you're in your 20s and you're a female, please pick this up, especially if you like nonfiction. I also have to shout out The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. Yeah, I'm surprised too. So if you didn't know, the first book in this series, Once Upon a Broken Heart, was, I don't remember if it was the worst book of last year, but it was definitely within like the top 3. I think it was like number 2. Oh, can't stand that book so much. But the series did get better with this one a little bit. I gave this one 4 stars. Definitely the first half of this book was similar to the first book and I did not like it. And then it picked up out of nowhere. A lot of stuff started happening. There was so much more Jax content. Finally, like, this sequel is supposed to be like a Jax sequel, which is my favorite character in the Carval series. The first book just isn't really about him at all, and so I was very disappointed, but we have a lot of Jax content in this second book, so I was really excited. I'll link my vlog down below if you haven't seen it already. I posted it pretty recently. But yeah, I just felt like a lot more happened. The writing was a little bit better, so much more Jax content, and I was like just super intrigued. I don't know, it was just so much better than the first book, but I do think Stephanie Garber needs an editor if she doesn't have one. It still wasn't, you know, amazing. I still only gave it 4 stars, but it's getting better, so I have really high hopes for this third book. I think it's going to be great since we have so much more of Jax in the story, so I'm super excited to uncover even more about him because there's a lot we don't know and that she's been teasing about, so I think we'll finally discover a lot of things about my favorite character in the conclusion to this series. Also, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is the Bellinger Sisters series duology. I did like the second book as well. I think I gave that one 4 stars instead, and I did read it right after the first book. I did just like the first book a little bit better though. The romance was just so good and the smut was really good, and I really liked the setting. The main character in this book is, you know, an influencer. She's spoiled, but she's not a brat, so that's the difference between that character and in The Simple Wild. She's just like a better person. She's nicer. I think this is probably my favorite romance I read this year, other than like fantasy romances I read this year. Those are obviously my favorite. I'm gonna talk about those here soon, but when it comes to just like contemporary romance, definitely my favorite one of this year. And then of course, this book would be on the list if it wasn't a reread. I usually don't count rereads as like my top books of the year, but I reread The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid for the first time. I went the audiobook route this time because the first time I read this was in 2018 and I read the physical book. Audiobook was just as good, and I don't know why I was so surprised. Like, it's so nice to know that an audiobook can be just as good as the physical book. Like, no matter what format you're reading, it's great. And like, of course it is. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was seriously so intrigued. Even though I knew everything that was going to happen, I was so intrigued by the mystery and the characters, wanting to know what happens next, but also like wanting to get to the parts that I already knew that were gonna happen. Love Evelyn Hugo so much. I relate to her so much. It's the only main female character I've ever read that's just like super polarizing. She's just so Evelyn Hugo, you know, like, she is the Slytherin queen of all time in my opinion. And like I said in my review, I will make everyone I know read this until the end of time. This is one of my favorite books of all time. If you haven't heard of this book yet, where have you been? And if you haven't read it yet, where have you been? All right, now for the official list, my top 5 favorite books of the year. Number 5 is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender. I can't remember who the author is, but it'll be on the screen here, of course. If you like magical realism, you have to pick up this book. It's probably one of the best magical realism books I've read, for sure. I've heard about this book forever. I think the first time I heard about it was back in like 2017. I just always had it on my list, but I never listened to it. Finally, I had an app where I could listen to the audiobook, so I did. It's great. It's magical, it's fun, it's whimsical. It is sad, and there are some more hard-hitting topics, but there's so many great things about it. There's mystery, there's great characters, the magical realism is great, a lot of like family dynamics. You're following a lineage, so you first follow Ava's either grandparents or great-grandparents, and then the next generation and then the next generation, but her like mom and aunts, I believe it was the most intriguing part of the story for me. So basically the first half is her ancestors, basically like her lineage you're following. In the first half of the book, you're following her ancestors and like the older generation, and the second half of the book, you are following Ava Lavender. Ava was born with wings, so it's this big wonder. Obviously, that's the magical realism part. Everyone in her family has something like, you know, magical realistic about them. Ava's is very obvious. You're basically just following her and how people treat her because of what she looks like, and there's some like religious aspects, like people literally think she is an angel that has like came to earth, and yeah, everyone just treats her differently in this small town, and she becomes very sad and depressed. Yeah, you're just following her and her family and the people in this town and how things pan out because of the fact that she was born with wings. But also her family is French, so I found it just super interesting and fascinating to follow this French family that was magical basically back in the 60s and whatnot, and how they traveled to America, things that happen with the people that would get involved with this family. And I just found that whole part just so interesting to me. I don't know why. And then once I got to Ava's part, I did find it a little slower. I wasn't as intrigued after that part, so I did enjoy the first half of this book more than the second half, which never happens to me ever. It might take me a week to read the first half, but it will take me a day to read the second half. It's just how I am. I have to get into a book before I can like really get into it, you know. But I did give this 4 stars, I believe, maybe 4.5, just because of me losing interest and it getting a bit slower for me towards the end is why I took off that much. But if you like magical realism, you have to read this. It's such an interesting, whimsical, dreamlike story. I don't even know how to like put it in words. It's almost like one of those Laini Taylor-esque books where it's just like so whimsy and dreamy. Definitely listen to the audiobook if you don't have the physical book on hand, but it was really good. Next is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This was my favorite I swear to God, if Whirlpool copyrights me, I will be pissed. Anyways, this was my favorite nonfiction of the year. This is a great book. It is an amazing book. My hat is off to her. Like, I feel like she wrote this so well, and it's such a personal, like, obviously it's very personal, very deep topic, and so the way it was presented and the way it was written was just like so well done, and my mouth was just dropping like every chapter. Like, it just, the things that happened to her and were happening to her are just really unbelievable. You know, one thing would happen and then it'd be the next, and then you kind of put yourself in her shoes. And, you know, being basically raised by my mother, being very close to my mother, I did relate to a lot of what she was talking about. Not anything, you know, in those intense aspects, but I can definitely see, you know, being a young girl and wanting to satisfy your mother, meet their expectations, and it just like really pulled at me and I couldn't get enough of this book. I had to read it like immediately. I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook is great. If you have SCRIBD, you can read it on there. I think you can read Ava Lavender on there as well. I actually have a link in my description where you can get your first month free if you want to, but it's just like an audiobook app. All of my audiobooks I listen to are on SCRIBD because they have so many on there that you can choose from. So if I'm not holding up any book in today's video, use that link and sign up so you can get your first month free, and then you can just listen to all these audiobooks. And then if you don't need it anymore, you can just, I guess, get rid of it. But anyways, I wasn't even a big iCarly fan when I was younger. I was more of a Disney kid and I grew out of it pretty fast. But my younger sister was obsessed with Nickelodeon. I think iCarly was actually her favorite, so we watched a lot of iCarly, and it's just crazy that all the, like, you just would never think that this was happening. And I'm so glad, I'm so happy she was able to tell her story and that, you know, she was brave enough to do it. And yeah, I think it speaks to a lot of people as well, and I think everyone should read it. Personally. Triggers, of course, please look up the triggers. There's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, child abuse, anorexia, bulimia. The list does go on, so please look up the trigger warnings first. The third best book I read this year was Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. I know that she has a new book that came out this year that I want to read as well. This is the first time I ever read from this author. I know she's not a huge author, so I really, if you want to get into this author, please read Una Out of Order first. This book is so good. It's so unique. Like, there is no other book out there like this. If you were around last year, then you know that my favorite book of 2021 was The Midnight Library, and this is a really good recommendation if you enjoy that book, if you like that book. If you gave it like 3 stars or above, read this. It's similar in a sense that there is time jumping. It's really more like different phases of Una's life instead of like different versions of your life like it is in The Midnight Library, but it does have a lot of the same themes. There's a lot of characters, and I just think, again, if you are a female in your 20s, you just have to read this. Basically, we're following Una, who has a very specific case, you know, kind of like the case of Benjamin Button, where every year she is living her life out of order. So on her birthday, which is January 1st, on New Year's Eve, right at midnight, she jumps to a different time and she will spend that entire year as that age. And so, for example, one of her time jumps, she goes from like 18 to 55. So in her mind, she's supposed to be like 18 or 19, but she's 55. And so obviously there's a lot of complications with that, but it was so interesting. You know, she would have to hide things from herself. Obviously this theme of like, can you change your fate, or is your fate predetermined? You know, seeing different versions of herself, which was really just different times of her life. And, you know, is she able to have children? Probably not. Is she able to even be married? Has she been married to multiple people? Will she meet them again at different times? She becomes rich because obviously she knows what will happen with the stock market, and she makes a lot of mistakes on the way and has to kind of question if she should fix those mistakes or just let them happen, because she's obviously always going to the future and she's always going to the past. She never just stays where she's at. So a lot of questions being questioned and answered in this book, and a lot going on. I really like the characters, love the plot. This was just so intriguing, such a unique book, and I loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars. The Midnight Library is by far superior to me than this. It's not exact to The Midnight Library. I will say this is a much more fun book. Obviously The Midnight Library is very depressing. It goes over very deep philosophical aspects, but this book is very fun. Yeah, such a good, unique read. Read it. So the next couple books, my top 2 books that I read this year, I'm going to pull off my bookshelf really quick, because if I would have pulled them off before starting the video, it would have been too obvious. So give me 1 second. All right, so I'm gonna try to not get so giddy about these next couple of books, but the second best book I read this year was ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, all the people that told me I would love this and recommended this to me over the years, You were right. Absolutely love this. I gave it 5 stars. I mean, I knew this book was written quite a while ago too. Let me look at the year actually. 2015, so that's not that long ago, but you know, it's almost 2023. So we're reaching like almost a decade ago at this point. So I just kind of kept comparing this to like a Twilight-y book in my mind a little bit. And so it got me in that like that headspace, and I was reading this going to Forks. Yeah, I finished it on the plane back from Forks, which by the way, if I haven't uploaded my Forks vlog yet, it's coming soon. It's taken a while because I had like 700 video clips, so I spent almost an entire week there. Anyways, back to ACOTAR. Yes, I'm one of those people now. I'm an ACOTAR person and I can't wait to read the second one. I have a feeling I'm gonna like it even more than the first one, but I personally love Tamlin. Like, I really like Tamlin, so I don't know if I'll ever create the same kind of love for Rhysand as I have for Tamlin. We'll see, I guess, but I didn't know anything about ACOTAR. I have successfully kept myself spoiler-free minus one thing. I got spoiled for one thing right before I started reading this, and I was a little upset at first, and then it really wasn't a big deal. But I'm just really excited to see where this goes. I don't really know what to say because I really enjoyed it and I'm really excited for more. It definitely is an addicting read. I can't believe I took this long to read it. Yes, I have the original covers because I bought these in 2018. So they have sat on my bookshelf for 5 years. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see them, but I have the original covers, and I'm actually really upset that the next couple books in the series, the 4th and 5th one, and is there a 6th one out yet? I don't know. I won't have the same covers for, and I really don't want to get rid of these. I've had people tell me to sell these, but I don't think I can. They're also the original books, so I know they don't look any different. Oh, I guess you can kind of see the thorn right there, but I have like the original book and the original cover, and I didn't even know that was a big thing until I had someone tell me about that. So anyways, there's not much I didn't like about the book. I actually vlogged my experience reading this, so if you're a big ACOTAR fan, I'll leave that link down below for you, or I'll put it in a card. I didn't know anything about it, and I'm so glad that's how I went with reading this. I was just like kind of confused because I know it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I love Beauty and the Beast, but I was just confused because I couldn't tell where it was going when she was spending so much time at Tamlin's. And then one, you know what I'm talking about, but like once really interesting things started happening, I was so into it, like could not put it down. I was so intrigued. I have so many theories. I predicted this book, 70% of what happened in this book, which apparently like no one does. So watch that vlog again, because like my theories over it and when I'm predicting, and then you see me like coming to the realization of if I was right or if I was wrong, because I was wrong about a couple things, but I feel like I'm rambling now, so I probably should get to the next book. But yeah, I am going to be reading the second one probably this winter. I'm trying to get myself to read Crooked Kingdom first so that I can finish the Six of Crows duology, and then just like literally dive headfirst into ACOTAR and just finish it completely probably. We'll see. Yeah, I finally read it and I loved it. 5 stars obviously, but I couldn't put it in front of the first book on this list because it's I love this book and series so much. So let me go get it off my shelf real quick. The best book, or books I should say, I read this year is the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Carrie Maniscalco. So I'll hold these up one by one. Kingdom of the Wicked, which is the first book in the series, Kingdom of the Curse, which is the second book in the series, and then the third book came out this year, not that long ago really, back in September, Kingdom of the Feared, which is the conclusion to the series. So I don't know which one to like hold up first. I feel like my camera is not focusing, but this is what they all look like. They're so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I love these books. I love these books so much. These are my entire personality now. Like, these are my life. I, again, am so mad at myself for taking so long to read the first book and start this series. So I read all of these this year, and yes, I'm putting them all as number 1 because I just didn't think it was fair to put them as 1, 2, and 3 and then kind of just knock everything else down, if you know what I mean. So I read Kingdom of the Wicked, obviously, and if you don't know anything about this series, it's basically an Italian-inspired fantasy. So you are in Italy, you're following Amelia, who is a twin sister, and her twin sister is like brutally murdered, and she has to solve the mystery. But it is actually a play on the 7 deadly sins, but they are princes of hell. And so she encounters one of the princes of hell, and I don't want to say anything more than that, but that is basically how it starts. So you're in Italy for this book, you're somewhere else for this book, but I'm not going to say. But I read this book directly after because I love the first one so much. The first one is a great introduction, the funnest of all of them for sure, and it just like slowly gets you into the series. And then the second one, just the world building starts to really happen. There's a lot of characters you're involved with, a lot of mystery. I don't even know how to talk about this. And then the third book, this is the best conclusion to a series I've ever read in my life. I think this book just, it made it whole for me. I don't know what I'm saying. I think if I had to choose between the three, I do think Kingdom of the Feared is my favorite, but I think Kingdom of the Curse is a very close second, and then obviously Kingdom of the Wicked. This one again is just like a fun intro book, but these are where it's at. These are where it's at. If you're looking for a new book boyfriend, or you just love YA fantasy series, or just like fantasy series in general, you have to pick these up. You just have to. They're just so good. They're so addicting. The mystery is so good. The smut is good. The fantasy world is amazing. The magic system's amazing. The family dynamics, the tension. Oh man, I can't think of one bad thing about this series. I really can't. And I'm trying not to be like too giddy about this, you know, but like, holy shit, I have not, excuse my French, I have not loved a fantasy series this much in a long time, probably since Twilight. Okay, like this is definitely my second favorite series of all time if you're comparing like Twilight and Harry Potter and all that. I had to reorganize my bookshelf. My reorganization vlog that I just posted not that long ago, by now I would hope I'd posted it, is because of this series. I had to display these on my bookshelf somehow, and so I reorganized it to where I have a completely just Twilight shelf at the top, and then all my favorite series. So I have like the ACOTAR books and these books and the Six of Crows duology all right beside each other, and then Evelyn Hugo is also in there with them. Ugh, these books make me so happy. They got me back into fantasy. I will say that the first one is YA, the second one is new adult, if you know what I mean, and then the third one is probably adult. If it's not adult, it's definitely new adult, but it is probably on the verge of adult. I've never read a series that does that before, where it takes you from young adult to adult within the series. Like it just matures within the series. I didn't even know that was like a thing you could do. And so yeah, Carrie Maniscalco is by far one of my favorite authors at this point, and I will read anything she writes. So I definitely have to start reading her backlog, but I know she's going to be coming out with a new book. I believe it is a standalone next year, so of course I'm gonna have to get my hands on that. But yes, if you want to talk about Kingdom of the Wicked, please comment down below. I will talk about Kingdom of the Wicked series like literally all day and every day. Maybe I'll do a TikTok or something, or like a reel where I just talk about my love for this series, because I feel like I've gone on for too long at this point. But Wrath is by far one of the best fantasy love interests I've ever read. I love him by far. And Amelia, the main character, she is one of the best main characters I've ever read. Like I love her to death. I love all the characters like so much. I love the world. I love everything about it. All the plot holes get wrapped up in the conclusion, and I thought, you know, Carrie was just like having fun with it. Everything gets wrapped up perfectly, and I'm convinced she's a genius. Anyways, those are the best books I read this year, my favorite books. Please leave a comment down below and tell me what your favorite books were of the year. If there's any books that I should read, I would love to talk to you about them. Please like the video if you like the video. I do want to say something real quick before I sign off. If you want to keep up with me, I really encourage you to follow my Instagram or my TikTok or my Goodreads. I will follow you back. I want more friends on all of them. But as you probably know, this year I haven't been posting much on my YouTube channel, and that's probably going to stay the same for 2023. I don't see myself really posting many, if any, videos for the year. I you know, have just gotten older and I think I'm growing out of YouTube a little bit. I do really like making videos and reading, obviously. Those are like two of my favorite hobbies, so that's why I kind of combined them years ago, back in 2018. But it does take a lot of time and energy, and I have lost interest a little bit, but I want to still stay active on Instagram. I know I wasn't that active when I first started it, but I am active now, making reels and all that. Of course, I update my Goodreads literally every day if you just want to keep up with my reading, and then I'll still be on TikTok here and there, just making fun content. Yeah, if you don't see me around, that's probably why, so go ahead and follow me on there and I will follow you back. It's at Storribook everywhere, and thanks for following along, especially if you've been around for years at this point. I know I get, you know, comments and DMs all the time from you guys, and I really appreciate talking to you and for all the love. I'm kidding, emotional. I will talk to you guys over on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you feel like. Bye!